In today's episode, Aileen and Nancy talk about channeling and about exploring new concepts while being in the now, regardless of previous outcomes and future expectations. Welcome to Expansive Minds Podcast, Gateway to Freedom, a podcast where two friends, Aileen and Nancy, explore and expand beyond what they think they know in order to live a life of freedom. Thank you for joining us, and away we go.
Hello.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Good.
Nice to see you.
Good.
Feeling the love with Valentine's Day coming up. So, hoping that we'll be in the love today as we talk.
Sounds good.
All right. Let's get into it.
So, I had absolutely no sense of anything coming over here. And I usually have something coming in. And my energy really shifted to a high place yesterday. I shifted so much out of this reality, the three-dimensional, five-sensory, on just another deep level.
So cool.
Really cool. In Westford, I was driving through Concord, and I just had this wild energy come up that was absolutely a sense of perfection and this high vibration of, yes, everything that was in my maybe energy heart or desires that were on a soul level, but not maybe a conditioned ego level. You know, there's that part of us in the three-dimensional, five-sensory, and our training here and all of that that's involved in how we make decisions.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like whatever we're driven by.
Right.
But it's ego. Some of it's healthy ego. Some of it's not as healthy ego. Sometimes it's karmic ego.
Yeah.
There's all different levels of that when you
Right.
want to say it. I think a time came where the word ego was just getting trashed. And it's not. As my polarity teacher said, we have to have egos or else we'd be flying off the planet. And
Right.
ego is as simple as, you know, I'm 5'8.5". My eyes are brown.
Yeah.
You know, it's an identity that is not terrible because we chose to be humans.
Right.
So the
Right.
construct of the vehicle we're in is the ego.
Yes. And that's an excellent point, because I do believe that a lot of the spirituality shifting that's been happening is to kind of villainize the ego in the 3D. But we came here. We came here to taste and touch and feel and explore and experience some imperfections so more desires could come out of that. But I think what sometimes maybe happens is we forget where we came from, and so then the 3D ego dominates. But
Yes.
to me, the spirituality is the balancing, the harmony of earth and sky to merge those higher dimensions in the 3D and then experience the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would totally
Interesting.
agree. Right. So that instead of defaulting and reacting in moments to the three-dimensional, five-sensory conditioning, we default to the spirit, like the spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it, that level higher self is the one that's intuition, right? Inspiration, all of that. So our decisions are not made based on external and old reward and punishment,
Right.
but based more on
Right.
into our self-happiness
Yes.
and having a sense of what our desires are, a sense of self, which then we respond to the world and we have an exchange with the world, the people, the places, the jobs, the food, everything is a give and take sharing experience, as opposed to the conditioning of I'm bad, this isn't good, I'll get in trouble, no one will like me.
Right.
All those
Right.
lower vibrations that are so disempowering,
Right.
devaluing, and honestly don't even make sense.
That's true. Yeah. That's when I kind of first, with traditional religions, as I started studying the spirituality stuff, and I still kept, I still have my belief system about God and Jesus, but I was continuing to go to church as I was exploring these concepts. And none of the words made sense all of a sudden, because it's like, we're hearing about this wrathful, punishing God based on what you do and don't do. And I'm like, well, how is that possible? Knowing what I know about energy and frequency. How could the highest frequency being ever dip into frequencies like that? Like, because that's what it would require, would be for that all-purpose high-frequency being to dip into a lower frequency so that he can judge you, then go back up to the high frequency. It just makes it suddenly made no sense to me that Source would be punishing and wrathful and trying to manipulate your behavior in such a way as to please that deity. Didn't make any sense.
Right. And the information comes through who?
It comes through humans. Right. Now that's tricky though, right? Because
there's some good channeling.
There is, but you are subject to your filter, right? So these higher messages may be coming through, but they're coming through the 3D person who's now filtering it and translating with their energy and their experience. I think that's one of the reasons why Esther Hicks is such a fantastic channel, is she was just blipping along, having fun, enjoying life, not cerebrally analyzing things. But her husband was very cerebral, Jerry, and so he had all these questions, and she's still like in fun mode, and it was kind of perfect. So when Abraham came to her, he would ask these very 3D questions, and she's just like fun. And I think that's why she was such a good candidate to be a channel.
Yes. I would agree.
So as I was riding here today, I was listening to Cryon, Kryon, not Chiron, Chiron. I was listening to Cryon. I think what's neat is his channel is so smooth and fluid and like normal, like it's almost like the way he talks. Whereas sometimes when you see people channel, they're waving around, they're flapping around, their voice gets weird, and it's a little distracting to me. So I like that Cryon is just sort of very, very even keel, similar to Lee. What's his name? Lee somebody. I'm sorry, I'm not sure Lee. Oh, Lee Carroll.
Oh, Lee Carroll. That's right.
Lee Carroll.
That's right.
Yeah. I like how when he channels. But so as I was listening to Lee channeling Cryon, he was talking about channeling, the act of channeling itself, and that it's multi-purposeful, multi-dimensional. There are people who get different things from each of it, but at its most robustness, there's the content. There's the frequency in which it lands in your being. And there is, this I've not heard, but it kind of makes sense. I've not heard these words used. During the channel, there is a quantum bubble, I think, sort of a quantum. It makes an actual quantum reaction in the field. So that as you sit and let yourself kind of be in that quantum bubble, you can actually experience healing. Now, I sort of instinctively knew.
That makes sense. Sure.
Yeah. And I've sort of instinctively known, like, when my kids are having tough times, I say, put on Esther. And they're like, yeah, but we already know. And I'm like, it doesn't matter what she's saying. There's an elevation that happens just in her speaking. So I don't care that you listen, but have her on in the background. And I think maybe what I was intuitively picking up on was what Cryon explained this morning as during the channel, there's an actual quantum bend in the field, a bubble, so that whether you're listening to it real time or after the fact, you benefit from that bubble in a high frequency, that you can allow yourself to be more allowing and receive. What were you going to?
And that just, you have so many things on my head right now. Well, the one thing I was going to say was about Dolores Cannon.
Yes, super cool.
And what I loved about...
Could you explain her?
Yeah, so the credibility piece is what I'm thinking about. We talked last week, and how do you choose who you're connected to and who you listen to? And one of the things I loved about Dolores Cannon is that her writings and her works are direct transcripts of recordings. So her personality and her take on it is not in her books. If she wants to say something and refer back to something, she'll put it in parentheses.
Yes.
So it's her. But
So what she did was she would do hypnosis.
She started wanting to do past life hypnosis. And then she found when she was working with people, they would go way beyond where she thought they were going to go. Like, this isn't 1700. Like, this isn't like 1195. Where are they? You know? And so she just was like, wow, I'm somewhere else. She recorded it, tape recorded it. And then she would transcribe exactly what was on the recording.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, so she was the questioner.
Correct.
But not the translator. That's
Exactly.
very pure.
I love it. And so what she came to her conclusion, she came to her thoughts on how things worked based on hundreds of, basically, they were like interviews when you think about it. They were interviews with people who had, perhaps you could say, ascended or shifted into a different perspective. And she saw similarities between what some people saw and what they talked about, and had a great time with it. And so when I look at a couple of her books, Convoluted Universe and a few of them, you'll see she says, you know, she'll have her initials and what she said, and then the client's initials, what they said. And it just, that's what it is. You're reading this transcribed from the recording. And it's not her tweaking anything. It's not her.
The Jane books, the Seth books.
Jane Roberts.
He used to do that too. The gentleman who was doing the interview, his text would be in italics or something. But I was aware of Dolores Cannon's works, but I actually never thought of it as, in that sense, that yes, it is pure. And that is a cool thing.
Yeah. The translating, being in the high vibration, in my experience, the evidence is what we call, well, in polarity, which is one of the energy medicine modalities that I practice, we call it the energy buzz. And people finish up on the table after we're doing, you know, body work or even video or phone. People start feeling what we describe as stoned. and it's like, okay, well, you're feeling that because we're in a higher vibration.
Yes.
We've gone into a high vibration. So so that speaks to the Abraham that you're saying. You're saying like, yes, just listen, just be in the presence of the vibration of that's coming. Even though it's recording, it doesn't matter. It's a trigger to be in this higher vibration.
Right. And Esther, I believe, said that when she first started channeling, it was like she was plugged into an electric socket, or she would have to hold on to the podium because there was like a swoon. And Abraham said it was working on her physical to kind of come up to that high frequency. So her body, her 3D body, was not yet up to receive such a high frequency. So it made interesting physical symptoms in her 3D body as this higher energy was flooding through her. Absolutely.
One of my first clients, because that would have been like 1994, 1995, I practiced out of my house on Nantucket, and this woman came in, and I don't remember what in particular, what physical reason or why she was in there, but I could feel her energy was dense, a little heavy. I was working on her, and at one point, her leg flew up in the air. And I said, oh, I'm excited because I'm thinking this is an amazing release. Like I'm working on her head, her leg flies up. And I said, oh, did you see that? Did you feel that? And she said, what? And I said, oh, your leg flew up. She said, it did? And I thought, all right, cool, whatever. You know, she's not aware of it, and that's okay. So after the session, she left the house. She's pulling out of the driveway. And it was funny because she sort of had this, well, I don't really know what happened while I was on the table. Like, okay. Yeah. And then there was a knock on the door, and I opened the door, and she was looking at me completely confused and dazed. And she said, I just ran over your mailbox. And I was like, oh, okay. And she said, I was backing out. I saw it. I knew it was there. But she said it was like slow motion. I kind of couldn't stop. I just kept slowly riding up. And I think at that point, she was sort of like, what is this weird voodoo magic?
Still processing that flood of
high vibration. So she was a little stoned. And then after that, I made sure that I had crackers and nuts and things available so that people could ground a little bit before they got on the road, before they started driving.
Well, I found when I first started working with you, I would be shivering, teeth chattering, shivering, after a session, and I think you said it, and I used to feel, and sometimes I still do, but not as often, that it was ice water just being splashed down the back of my neck. And you said it was because we moved old energy. So now I drink green tea. And so after I talk to you, because it's warm and it feels earthy in connection. So yes, after I do any energy work myself or have someone work on me, I drink green tea.
That's so great to have strategies. The cold feeling, lots of people feel cold feelings. They get cold, shivering. I always like have blankets. You want a blanket? You want me to turn up the heat? Because it's releasing.
Yeah.
It's letting go of something.
Crystallized old
energy. And because it feels cold and like ice sometimes running down, that tells you it's emotional.
Okay.
Because water is the element of emotion.
Yes.
So it's being released, it's coming out and being released. And, you think about if you have a coat on and you're so used to the temperature and the weight and everything of the coat, and then you take it off and you're going to get a little chill. It's a change. It's a real change.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a cool phenomena.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to tell you about channeling, because there's a difference between being a medium, which is a translator, in the way that it's more like an interpreter. So there's times when telepathically, I still think it's telepathic if a person has died. So entities, beings, guardians, guides, people that are alive can still have a telepathic conversation with someone from their higher self, not their ego self, but their higher self. So being a medium means translating the vibrational consciousness from another being, no matter where they are and what they're doing, into the language, in our case would be English.
Right.
And the
vocabulary that is available to that person.
Correct. And yes. And channeling is when the consciousness of that being actually comes and hangs out inside.
With permission from the host.
Yeah.
Rarely.
It's pretty...
Because I know some people get a little scared with channeling. It's actually something that I think, as we're talking, I might be experiencing, because we were just talking and my tongue was doing weird things.
That's why I wanted to bring it up.
And
yes.
so, so there is a fear of old school, of course, here comes the Italian, it's an exorcist,
Right. And
I need an exorcist, I'm possessed. And so there's a fear, but what's important to know is you always have control in this time.
Correct. It's never been an issue. And it's actually really adorable the times that it's happened to me. Frequently, I'm a medium. That's really easy. Yeah. And it happens kind of all the time. And the channeling, the first time it really happened for an extended period was when my sister has a good friend, and we're all friends, but closer to my sister. They went to school together and everything. So she said, they're trying to sell the grandmother's house. They can't sell the grandmother's house. Can you come down and see if you can do something? And I thought, all right. I'm up for anything. People call, I'm like, can you work on a chicken? I'm like, all right, sure. All right, whatever. Why not? Let's try it.
Actually, my chiropractor just worked on my dog remotely through me just this week.
Don't you love that? I do it all the time. Love it.
Love it. Changed dog. Honestly, could see the shift in the dog.
100%. 100%. So I was like, all right, sure. I'll meet you down at the house. I'll meet you at the house. So I drove down to the South Shore. My sister's already in the house. I pull in and I have a little bit of this anxiety, like, oh, there's an expectation I'm going to help them sell this house. I'm going to shift the energy in some way. There are times when I'll bring bells or chimes or smudge. There's times when I bring things places to homes or houses. I'm off to clear, to shift it, to read it. Sure. This felt a little different for some reason. So I don't think I had any of my accoutrements. I don't think I brought anything with me. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to go in there. So as I went to the front door, I looked down and this voice came out of me that basically I was complaining about the mat. I was like, what is this mat doing here? I don't like this mat. And this is the part about channeling. So me as Aileen, as the person in this 3-dimensional, It's like I'm kind of to the side a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like, if you move to the side to let somebody go by you.
Yeah.
Like if you're driving on the road and you're like, oh, I'll go over to the side to let this person come through, right?
Okay, so that's what
it is. You're making a choice to just pull over on the side of the road because it's not enough room for two people to come through. Yeah. So you're just like,
that's a beautiful
I'm
analogy.
pulling over,
and
then this person's coming through. So it is a choice in that way. So then I opened the door to come in, and I didn't say anything to my sister at that point because I was like, I don't know what just happened. So then it was this animated. I always feel very animated, internally animated. And so then I started talking about things, and I just let it roll. And I said, where's my rocking chair? And my voice changed, and I'm looking for this, and I'm looking for that. And my sister, who had met the grandmother, but I had never, she said, oh my God, I got to call her friend. Yeah. So she calls her friend, and she's got my sister has the phone up to me. So I'm just saying stuff.
You're still...
And I'm still channeling, but I'm like, oh my gosh. So I can hear my sister's friend on the other side saying, oh, she's right. That is where her chair was. She's right. So she's listening to me.
Oh, cool.
Ask, where's that chair? And I used to sit there, and that's where I used to knit. And what is this? Why did they add this here? And, so I'm just kind of complaining about everything. And then it was really fun because my sister's friend took the opportunity to get a little gossip out where she said, we always thought that people before there was an affair going on. And so she wants to get the gossip. And I was like, yes, that absolutely was happening. And my sister's friend's like, I knew it. It was hilarious. So that... the channeling, that was probably one of my longest channelings because I'm going through the house. And then the house ended up selling, and it was fine because we had to, let the grandmother know, like, we got this. We're together working on this. It's okay. So that was really fun. And other times I'll be in sessions with people, and at some point, and it's really sweet when it happens, my hands will start moving, my body will move, my voice will shift enough, the tone that I sound exactly like someone who died, from that. And that's really sweet because it just adds so much
to the message that they want. It lands more so.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then there's guardians and guides and other things that sometimes come through. So when we talk about Cryon and the Seth books and Abraham who comes through Esther Hicks, these are all entities and whatever you want to say. Where are they? Where are they from? Sometimes they don't have a place, and doesn't really matter what quote unquote place they're from.
And an entity just being, not to oversimplify, but an entity being a frequency, being a body of energy. One of the things that I think is important if you venture into this thing is you set your intention that you will, if you are going to channel or you want to talk to people, you set your intention that you'll talk with the highest energy sources, because every, like Abraham says, every thought form that was ever thought exists is floating in the ethers. And Abraham says, if you're getting messages that aren't anything other than positive and love and light, it ain't us. And I have someone in my life who is quite the channel, but occasionally some of the things that come through are very dark, and I'm like, I don't know if that's exactly what you're meaning to get. I'm not doubting that you're channeling. You're just, I don't know if what you're getting is
right,
pure positive. So I would ground, I would smudge, I would reset, and I would go at it again, expecting the high frequencies to come through.
So your point that, as vessels, when it comes through us, yes, sometimes it can pick up on our own stuff and from this lifetime experience.
Exactly, because the things that this person in my experience was saying sounded like her stuff.
Yeah, little
I'm
tainted.
Like, you sure that's what they want to say? You sure that's what my dad's saying to me? Because it doesn't sound like my dad.
Right.
And it's hers. It was hers.
Yeah, and clearly. That's right. And so, people who have a very scientific brain, I think, are really good in this particular role.
I thought you were gonna me and my geekness.
No, that's the best, because when we're scientists, we want to get to the truth. We in our minds are like, give us more. We're explorers.
But is our skepticism preventing us from being pure positive love?
No, I don't think so. No, if you're a real scientist, you're up for exploration.
But it's just
discovery.
Guess what I'm thinking of is I've heard Eckhart speak of the idea of really being conscious, which is connecting to all sorts of love and light, is to rise above thought. And sometimes you fall below thought, maybe with alcohol or drugs, or he used like Forrest Gump. Like he was quite the manifester, but because he fell below thought. But if you can rise above thought, that's really where you want to be, in that's your ideal state of consciousness. But if you're wrapped up in thought, like I find we cerebral people often are, then we're not.
Well, so there's a difference between, so when I say scientist, a scientist to me is an explorer. And like you and I both love Star Trek.
Yes. And Einstein.
Explorers, scientists. You want to get to the bottom of it. You want to figure it out, but not box it. If you're a scientist, you're not boxing. So if you're overly skeptical, if you're overly in thought, then you're not trying to prove anything wrong. Like that, you're not trying to prove anything or prove that it's wrong. What you're trying to do is investigate.
Right.
To expand.
I love that. Investigate to expand, which to me was Einstein. He knew enough to know that he didn't know.
Exactly.
And he would investigate like the field, right? He's, the math shows that it's there. We don't have the instruments to see it, but the math shows it's there. And he always acquiesced to God, in one way, shape, form, or another, as brilliant as he was. So yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So by showing up in the now. So for example, when this client and friend of mine called many years ago and said, my chicken is not laying eggs. I brought the chicken to the vet, and they said, well, either eat her or put her down. Like she's not going to be any good.
Eat her.
And they're like, we do not eat our chickens. They're pets. Like we don't eat our chickens. And so she called me up and she said, could you come look at the chicken? And I thought, yeah, okay. Right? Yeah. So remember, the other people were, nope, it can't work. Nope, we can't explore. We're not going to explore. Yeah. We just know if the chicken hasn't laid eggs for this long, done.
Yes.
Right? So that's the part of the thinking that's the issue. Like stay out of that kind of thought.
Right. Based on my experience, not based on what could be, but based on what I have past observed.
Didn't jump into the now. They didn't jump into the now.
Yeah.
So I jumped into the now. And honestly, one of my, not biggest fears in life, but one of my I should be careful, cautious fears is that I will get too close to an animal, like a bird, and it will peck my eye out or something.
Okay.
It's sort of like, I need to, because I do love animals, but it's sort of just like, they don't really maybe want me that close, so I should think of that. So here I'm going to this chicken, like looking at it. At that point, I'd never held a chicken. I mean, I've saved birds as kids.
A lot of us have.
Right. So I'm looking and she just loves this chicken. I'm like, I got to give this chicken everything I got, So, and I've never studied chicken anatomy or anything, right? So I'm not in that thought like, well, look, I'm just like, all right, I know energy and we want this chicken to live, like we want this chicken to lay eggs and live. And so I got to get close to it. And I'm like, ooh, my eye. Like, please don't peck my eye out. So then I look, I'm touching her. I'm like, boop, 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 and she's like, moving a little. And then I find this thing near her wing and I go, I'm going for it, and I just, boop, boop, and I do this sort of little energy shift and give it a little push and just, I feel it. And all of a sudden she kind of, she does, and then she chills, super chills. And part of me is like, did I kill her? Like, what's happening? Like, oh, no, I don't really. And she just totally relaxed. And I thought, well, whatever, I feel done. This feels done. And I left. And then my friend called me the next day. She said, oh my gosh, she's up. She's moving around. And then she ended up laying eggs. And everything was great. Everything was great.
Yeah.
So that's the explorer description. That's the scientist where I'm going, maybe I'm in. You want to see if I can help your chicken? Yeah. I'm going to do it. Yeah.
So we gotta start to wrap it up. So as we go off on our week, we be in the now and open to possibilities and explorations, yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome. And as always, more to be revealed.
Thank you for joining us on Expansive Minds podcast, Gateway to Freedom. Until next time, more to be revealed.